Okay, here are the Charlemagne readings that Mr. Detoda has for you to create your Facebook profile and your slide number 10. Okay, Charlemagne and the Franks. Okay. In 486, a warrior named Clovis defeated the Romans and established a kingdom centered in Paris. Clovis was a Frank, one of the many Germanic tribes that lived in Western Europe in the 5th century. Clovis worshipped pagan gods. In fact, his people believed Clovis to be the descendant of Wotan, the most powerful and Frankish of the Frankish gods. In 496, Clovis and his soldiers fought another Germanic tribe. As the battle turned against Clovis, the Frankish king vowed to devote his life to Christianity if the Franks won the battle. So after their unlikely victory, Clovis and 3,000 of his soldiers were baptized by a Catholic bishop. Clovis and his soldiers established the power of the Franks in Christianity throughout their realm. Okay. Islamic warriors crossed the Pyrenees Mountains in 732 and attempted to conquer the Franks. Okay, so this is a little bit later. A Frankish general named Charles Martel defeated the Muslim army. This victory is considered the beginning of the Reconquista. The Reconquista was the Christian conquest of Europe after the invasion of the Moors. Charlemagne, a name that means Charles the Great, was Charles Martel's grandson and the greatest of the Frankish kings. In an era where most men were little more than 5 feet tall, Charlemagne stood 6 feet 4 inches. Charlemagne expanded the kingdom of the Franks into the Spain and Central Europe. Although Charlemagne never learned to read or write, he wanted to recapture the glory of the Roman Empire. The Frankish king set up schools throughout the empire and provided funds that allowed monks to copy the works of the Greek and Roman authors. Charlemagne's goal was to unite all the Germanic tribes into a single Christian kingdom. In 799, Charlemagne's armies rescued Pope Leo III from an attack. On Christmas Day, 800, the Pope repaid the king for his assistance. As Charlemagne rose from prayer, Leo placed a crown on Charlemagne's head and proclaimed him Augustus, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. The coronation united Christendom under Charlemagne's rule, but it also troubled the newly crowned emperor. Charlemagne was not prepared to take his coronation, and may not have wanted to be crowned by the Pope. If the Pope had the power to crown Charlemagne king, the Pope might also have the right to remove the crown. So when Charlemagne named his son as his successor, he presided over the ceremony himself and did not invite the Pope. Many years later, as Napoleon was about to be crowned Emperor of France in 1804, he took the crown from Pope Pius VII and set it on the head himself. Okay. Charlemagne's empire crumbled soon after his death, and the promise of returning the glory of Rome to Western Europe soon faded. The term Holy Roman Empire would be used to describe different Frankish and German lands for another 10 centuries, but the empire never attained Charlemagne's promise of uniting Christendom into one kingdom. In 1806, Napoleon prepared to oust Francis II from his title of Holy Roman Empire. So Francis renounced his title and decreed himself Emperor of Austria. The Holy Roman Empire ceased to exist after having been part of Europe for more than a millennium. Okay, so that's the basic of that those paragraphs, and it basically talks about Charlemagne trying to make everything a Christian kingdom of some sort. Leader. Okay, the first article I didn't find as much, except for he had some kind of argument with the Pope or something. All right. Okay, this article looks like it talks a little bit more about Charlemagne being a great emperor of Europe. Charlemagne, great emperor of Europe. Charlemagne was a great European leader in the late 8th century and the early 9th century. He was born April 2nd, 742 AD in northern Europe. Charlemagne was the son of Pepin the Short, who became king of the Franks. Charlemagne was a very tall man, especially for his time. He was 6'4" tall. He accompanied the Frankish army to defend the Pope against the Lombards and also fought in other battles. From these experiences, he learned that strong leadership on and off the battlefield was important. In 768, when Charlemagne was 26 years old, his father Pepin died. Charlemagne and Carloman, his brother, had to share the leadership of the Franks. 3 years later, Carloman died, which meant that Charlemagne would rule the Franks alone. Charlemagne wished to expand and strengthen the Frankish Empire, so he launched several campaigns against the Saxons in northern Europe. The Lombards in Italy, the Slavs and Avars, and what are now Austria, Hungary, Croatia, and Slovenia, and the Moors in northern Spain. He successfully conquered all these groups and brought them under his rule. Okay, so I'm going to highlight those. He wanted to strengthen the Frankish Empire, so he defeated the Saxons in northern Europe, the Lombards in Italy, and the Slavs and the Avars, what are now in Hungary, Croatia, and Slovenia. And he also got rid of the Moors in northern Maine. So the Lombards, Saxons, Slavs, and the Moors. Okay. In 799, Charlemagne helped Pope Leo III squash a rebellion. As a result, Leo III crowned and anointed Charlemagne Empire of the Romans. Okay. As emperor, Charlemagne improved the way the people were ruled. He also improved the economy by standardizing weights and measures. He minted a silver coin to be used throughout the empire, and he standardized tolls and custom fees so that everyone paid the same price for the certain goods or services. These changes improved business. Charlemagne also made legal improvements. He had laws organized, and he made some laws into statutes for the empire. He urged better methods of farming, promoted education, and spread Christianity. Now, there's a lot of things he did here. I'm going to underline them. He improved the way people were ruled. He improved the economy. He standardized weights and measures by standardizing weights and measures. He minted a silver coin. He standardized tolls and custom fees so that everyone paid the same price. He made legal improvements. He had laws organized, and he made laws into statutes for the emperor. He urged better methods of farming and promoted education and spread Christianity. So he did a lot of things here. I'm going to underline these too. He improved the economy by standardizing. He minted a silver coin. He standardized tolls and custom fees. He made laws organized, made some laws into statutes for the empire. He urged better methods of farming, promoted education, and the spread of Christianity. A lot of things right there in that paragraph. Okay, Charlemagne the Great. Charlemagne, the great emperor of Western Europe Empire, died in 814 at the age of 72. He's buried in his capital, which is modern-day Germany. So he's buried in Germany. Hold on. Lucy, Germany. He died at the age of 72. He was born here. That's when he was born. Hey! Okay. Another main thing is he was 26 when his dad died 3 years later, 26, 27, 28. So when he was 28, he would rule the Franks alone. That would be at the age of 28. Okay. To help become a great... Okay, here are some other things that made Charlemagne great. Trial by jury, not by ordeal. Under the Frankish Empire, the court system was famous for its time. For one thing, a consistent court system existed, at least. When Charlemagne came to power as king of the Frankish Empire, he agreed that the court system was consistent, but he believed it was consistently unfair. The Frankish court system trial was by ordeal. So he thought it was unfair. So basically, if you were a peasant and you were accused of a crime, to prove your innocence, you had to hold a red hot metal poker until your hand was deeply burned. If your burnt hand healed in 3 days, which it was unlikely to do, then you were found innocent. If it did not, you were guilty. Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds fair, huh? All right. If you were a noble, you could prove your innocence in ordeal by a fight. You could hire someone to fight for you. If the person you hired lived, you were found innocent. If the person you hired died, you were found guilty, but you had to pay for your punishment. You had to pay with your life, so to speak, so at least the life of the person you had hired, thus you were free to go. Wait, or at least with the life of the person you hired, so you were free to go. Charlemagne did not think much of the system of justice, and he started a new system called trial by panel. Okay, anything sounds better than that system. Under Charlemagne's system, each accused person would be heard by a panel of honorable men who had taken oath to listen and to judge fairly based on evidence presented. There was still corruption, but the system had a much better chance of being fair than the old one. Our modern jury system, trial by jury, slowly developed from this early start. So thank goodness for Charlemagne for having a trial by panel. And that is very important right here. Okay? All right, now let's talk about education and preservation. Education, after the fall of Rome in 476 CE, the ability to read and write began to disappear. Soon, only people left with these skills were the clergy, and not even all of them had these abilities. To effectively rule from his kingdom and to successfully convert people to Christianity, because that was his goal, to turn everybody into Christians, Charlemagne wanted his officials to be able to read and write. If he sent them a note giving them some instruction, he wanted to make sure they could read it. So to accomplish this, he turned his own palace into a center of learning. Scholars came from all over Europe to teach in the palace school. So that's pretty big. He turned his own palace into a center of learning. And scholars came from all over Europe to teach there. Charlemagne knew how to read, but he did not know how to write. He attempted to learn, but his hands were so scarred from battle to write legibly. Charlemagne tried to talk other nobles into joining him in his educational pursuits, but they were quite resistant. It was not the Frankish way. The Frankish nobles thought reading and writing was a waste of time, and because they were warriors. Preservation. Charlemagne gave many of his scholars the job of copying all the old manuscripts into Latin by hand. This preserved much knowledge. All books in the Middle Ages were written by hand. All books were written to glorify religion. Each page was beautifully designed. Some pages were illuminated with a cover of gold. These books are known as the illuminated manuscripts. The art of illuminating manuscripts continued for many hundreds of years. All right, so let's see. He preserved knowledge because he made people copy old manuscripts into Latin. And that's why, we don't teach Latin today, but a lot of schools back, like even my parents or my grandparents, they had to learn Latin. Some pages were illuminated with a cover of gold. They're known as the illuminated manuscripts, and that people still do that, illuminate manuscripts. Okay, so that was preserving knowledge with education, and he had his own. Okay, so that gives you a kind of an idea of all the things that Charlemagne did.